Hi, you're listening to my podcast, Colin in Conversation. I'm Colin. I'm a comedian, writer and broadcaster, and over the next few pods, we're going to be talking to the famous, the infamous and the fabulous. You're going to love this content, folks. You're going to want to comment, review, like, and anything less than a 5-star review, I'll consider a hate crime. But enough of me, here's some more of me, with a cool guest. Welcome to Colin in Conversation, where we talk to the famous, the infamous and the fabulous. My guest today is the fantastic Lucy Cavendish. I guess you come under fabulous, Lucy, do you?
Yeah. One fabulous, obviously fabulous.
Well, I'm saying fabulous. I think that's the category we put you in, I think.
Yeah, that feels like a good category to me.
How are you doing?
I am very good, thank you very much.
Good.
I'm very good.
And you've been enjoying the weather? Because it's cold here. I don't know where you are. It's been freezing today.
I am in Henley-on-Thames. I like the cold weather. I just don't like the wet weather, but I like the cold weather.
I live on a boat, you see, so it's a little bit, the dynamic's a bit different.
I used to have a boat.
Oh, did you?
Yes, a narrow boat.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't quite in keeping, but I can tell you something. I think they're really romantic. I think we had a wood-burning stove. It was all great, but I can tell you, and I'm sure you know this, things went wrong all the time. And it was really difficult. The loo didn't work half the time, even though it was brand new. Trying to heat it. It was fine with the wood-burning stove, but actually trying to heat it was difficult. We were off-grid, so we weren't on the mains. So you'd have to run the engine of the boat to get the electrics to work and charge everything up. The wind, it's beautiful.
We did a year. We did a year on the Cop, and then we've been in a marina for the last year, and we've never been happier.
Because you're on the...
We're on the marina. We can plug in. We can take the boat out for a day or two if we want to.
I think we were off piste, and I think that's difficult. I think it's difficult. But it's beautiful to wake up in the morning.
It's a rough life.
It's a rough life.
It's a rough life. Yeah, it nearly killed me and my partner.
Well, you still managed to stay together.
Yeah. The marina helped, I think, because it's so isolating. That's the thing. It's just you become this mass disconnect from everything. Anyway, we digress. Lucy, tell my listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, okay, so I'm Lucy Cavendish. I am a therapist and a coach and an author and a podcaster. I used to be a journalist. I still do some journalism. I wrote a column, for the Sunday Telegraph magazine, interviewed celebrities, launched Observer Food Month. We had a really big journalist career. And about 10 years ago, retrained as a psychotherapist. And I've been working as a therapist since then. But I also do some journalism to support the therapeutic work. I see couples, individuals. I used to see teenagers, not so much now. Very few teenagers, mainly because their parents were really difficult. The teenagers were great. The parents were tricky.
Yeah.
And I
can imagine that.
Their parents are tricky. They want you to deliver them back a little sweet 10-year-old when their kid's 17, Yeah, they say these are, I don't like it because
I'm not God. Do you know what I mean?
So I'm like, you've got to grow up with your kids. You've got to renegotiate. It's like all relationships, you've got to renegotiate what's going on. I'm a calling in the one and conscious uncoupling coach. I do lots and lots of things.
We've dragged you in, I guess, with the idea that this podcast is going to be released on Valentine's Day. So I guess we've dragged you in with your relationship, but I'm happy to let the conversation flow wherever you want it to, Lucy, to be honest. There's no kind of, I've not got a fixed regimented list of questions, but in terms of relationship, we all know what we've got to do on Valentine's Day, don't we? We know, but I feel a bit like Valentine's Day. Me and my partner don't do Valentine's, and we don't do Valentine's because our thoughts is we try and show each other we love each other every day. Right,
yeah,
but that sounds much better than it is difficult. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, Well, I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day, but that's because I've never really been with anyone who's been big on Valentine's. Would I like someone to treat me like a princess on Valentine's Day? Hell yeah,
Yeah,
Hell yeah. Would I like the meal and the champagne and the roses and, a card? Yes, of course I would, because at heart I'm a great big romantic. So lots of us are great big romantics
yeah,
underneath that. But we all feel a bit ashamed, and so we don't tell people. So what do we do outside of Valentine's Day? Well, you've nailed it. Love has got to be a 365-day thing.
yeah,
And when people come to me for couples counseling, what I think a lot of relationships don't really understand is that relationships are work, and they're quite hard work. I think people meet, champagne, roses, and they fall in love, whatever. And love is a big word.
mm,
People fall in love in many, many different ways. But they meet and something happens, and they go into that phase of, oh, I've met my one, and I'm so happy, and the sun shines even when it's December, and the Tweety birds tweet. It's all great. And that lasts for a bit, what I would call limerence, the bit where you fall in love. It lasts for a bit, let's say 6 months to 2 to 3 years. And all you want to do is be with each other and have lots of sex, and
yeah.
you're just in the love
The
bubble.
honeymoon period.
Yeah, it's
For
great,
want.
and all, you're having a chemical reaction in your body. Scientists will go, well, what is happening for you now is, you've got full of dopamine, your serotonin levels are up. It's like
Yeah,
eating 80,000 chocolates every day. Happy, happy, happy. But then inevitably that shifts and changes, because what happens then is you go from the bit where you're projecting your fantasies onto each other into the reality of who the other person actually is. And for
yeah.
some people, that's a massive, great big shock.
And I guess that's why a lot of relationships end after a few weeks.
Well, the limit should last longer than a few weeks. Things ending under a few weeks is
Well,
people not really having the capacity to have
okay.
relationships.
Yeah.
They're just like, they're like Peter Pan's. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, no, I'm not. They get the ick within, 6 weeks.
I'm a compulsive relationship person. I am. I'm sort of. I can map my way through my adult life, kind of from relationship to relationship. I think. I don't know
Right.
if that's particularly healthy,
No,
but I
it's
think
not healthy. It's
you
not
know,
healthy. I've
you
got
know.
big red flags going, no, unhealthy.
I
Because
know. Yeah, yeah,
the biggest relationship you have to have is with yourself. It's not
yes,
someone else's job to heal us, make us happy, look after us, pay for us, blah, blah, cook for us, blah, 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 blah. It's not someone else's job. It's our job. And the way we have healthy relationships is two healthy people,
yeah,
emotionally healthy people get together. A lot of people, I was about to say men, but it's not just men. They just go from one relationship to another, and they never really do the self-discovery work. They just go
yeah,
from this person to this person to this person, hoping in vain hope that one day it'll all work out. And then
yeah.
they come to me and go, none of my relationships work out. And I'm
I,
like, and the common denominator is you, not you. I'm not
yeah,
saying you.
yeah. No, well, it took divorce for me to get to that realization for myself. It took separating from the mother of my children, and before I made that realization, and hopefully now I'm happy and with the one I'm going to be with till I'm gone. So, but definitely up until my divorce, I was definitely what I'd describe as a compulsive, like wasn't really happy on my own, I guess. And then you get divorced and you readdress some stuff, don't you? You take stock of
Well,
yourself
I
as
think people do readdress stuff, and I think divorce is one of the points where people hopefully, ideally, sit down and think, okay, what's this actually about? Because it's an awakening, and I know
yeah,
people find that difficult, but it is. You know, when we all look at our relationship patterns, we all have relationship patterns. If we want to change our relationships, we've got to change our relationship pattern, or else we're just going to keep doing the same
yeah,
thing again.
yeah,
So I help people do that, even if they don't want to do it. So people come to me and go, I can't believe he dumped me, and then he dumped me, and he dumped me. And of course, the key thing to that is the person that's being dumped, or people that get together with unavailable people. So this is, we do the projective bit where we're like, this is, oh, I've met my knight in shining armor, I've met my maid Marian or whatever. Then after a while, we actually then have to do the work of loving the person, and loving is a verb, it's an action. We're taking an action. Loving is an action. Being in love is just, airy fairy up in the clouds. Loving somebody takes respect, it takes appreciation, it takes growing ourselves into being something bigger than we are, more expansive, kinder, more
It's effort. It's effort. It's work.
It's work, and you've got to expand yourself into someone that you may not quite know yourself to be, which is someone who doesn't get cross because someone left the top off the toothpaste, right? It's learning how to grow love, which is a beautiful thing. It's much more beautiful to grow love than it is to destroy love. It's much easier to destroy love. It's like trying to diet. It's much easier to put on weight than it is to lose weight. But if we've made that commitment, to me, it's like I was saying to people, it's so much better to love each other than take great big chunks out of each other.
But you have to let some stuff slide, don't you? And it's the same with parenting with the kids. You can't fight, because you're the expert on relationships. The one analogy in my head is it's the same with the kids. You can't fight with every single battle.
You can't if you want to. Your kids aren't going to like you very much.
And your life's going to be hard, and you're going to be miserable, and you're not going to sleep. Yeah, and in relationships, I guess, as someone, I said before that I'm neurodiverse, so I'm quite a lot to put up with. So there is, for my partner, and it works both ways. We just have to let some stuff slide. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. We'd just be arguing all the time. And I've got friends that argue all the time. It doesn't look fun.
The thing about arguing is it doesn't really get you anywhere. I mean, I think what people need to bear in mind is where are we trying to get to with this? So I meet people that are very stuck. So arguing's fine, right? Confrontation is fine. Anger is fine. All this stuff is fine. People say, I don't like someone getting angry with me. I'm like, well, you can't, if you've got a partner and you say to them, you can't ever be angry with me because I can't tolerate it, you're shutting down a lot of your relationship. That's crazy. Right?
Yeah.
It's passive aggressive. You can't do this because I don't like it. Well, you can't shut down all sorts of, our color wheel of emotions is huge. And it's wonderful to experience all of our emotions. It's important we experience all of our emotions. But, we don't want to get stuck. And people get very stuck in their relationships. So they get stuck in arguing. And it's not generative. It's not moving anything forwards. It's not changing anything.
Yeah.
And, I see the world as a multicolored, multidimensional place. And it's just much healthier to come from a position of I have the capacity to love people than I actually want to spend my life making other people miserable, including myself. I don't want to do that. That's not a fun life to live. I think life is a fun, interesting place to be. And that's what I try to get people to grow. And the other thing I ask people to do, and people don't like this either, but I never said this was easy. And also it's okay for people not to like me. I'm all good to go with that. Is to take some responsibility for how they act and what they do.
Yeah.
So the language people often use is you make me, or he makes me feel like I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
And it's all the other person is being a bad person to me, rather than actually thinking, well, who am I in this situation? What am I making myself feel, and why am I making myself feel?
I mean, that's the problem.
It make you feel anything, really. I mean,
I'd argue that I wouldn't argue at all. Not argue. I'd suggest that's a problem with society at large, not just in the confines of a relationship. There's
a lack of self-responsibility.
Well, a lack of self-responsibility. What I call it is whataboutism.
Give me more.
It's what about them? It's what about them? Why should I clean my stuff up when they've just left all their stuff? So it's whataboutism. It's I'm going to behave like this, and my justification for doing so is because everybody else behaves like that.
Yes, and then you say, okay, fine. Is that how you want to be do you want to be an Ubermensch? Do you want to be
but there's, in society and in relationships, there's it's almost Uber level. It's really quite, no responsibility. It's always somebody, and I can't help thinking, I don't. That there must be a reason for that. I'm not an expert. You probably know better than me, and but it's where at which point, because when we're kids, we're punished if we do something wrong, and we're taught responsibility.
Are
At
we?
which point,
Not
well,
necessarily.
I think I'd like to think I was, and
Well,
I passed that.
I don't like the word punished at all.
Well,
And I don't like the word wrong. Those are two
okay,
words that immediately flash up as
okay,
you know. I don't think I think the last thing kids need is punishing. I think what they need is encouraging to do really amazing things. I think punishing children, I think like, why on earth would you go on punishing your children? I mean, you love your children, you want to encourage them to be a brilliant human being.
yeah.
And what on our wrong may not be their wrong. It's like saying to kids, you got to respect your elders. Why? Why do they have to
Oh,
respect
I
their elders?
wouldn't know. I mean that.
If their elders are behaving
Yeah,
like little
yeah.
assholes. I don't
That
think they have to respect that anyone at all. You have to earn respect. Everyone has to earn respect.
and that's kind
But
of
with the kids, I'm very big. I think children are great. I think teenagers are great. I think their energy is wonderful, and we just plat them,
me
constantly
too, me too,
tell them
and
how bad they are.
as a parent of my big two are in their 20s now. My youngest is 16, but it's not been made easy by the media and the internet, and like the internet was our biggest enemy as parents, and we've gone off track completely now. But the I think when we use the word punishment, maybe what we mean is discipline. I think they're two different things. I think
Yes,
discipline's a net. I think punishment implies
yes,
some kind of physical,
pain.
and that was never it. But
No.
making sure the children, if they did something they weren't supposed to do, making sure responsibility was taken for it. Yes, we did
Yeah.
that.
Yes. That's right. We were talking about taking responsibility. So yeah, I think there's something that you've hit on that is interesting is our increasing lack of capacity to take responsibility,
Yeah, and why is that?
which is quite childlike, that kind of childlike thing of it's not my fault. Da, 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 da. I think people find it, in terms of relationships, a key thing is to take responsibility
Yeah,
for the relationship and for our role in the relationship. That's really important. I got married and then got divorced, and all sorts of things happened. I won't go into that now. But when people say things like, but you weren't to know that he was XYZ, the truth of the matter is, part of me did know, but I didn't want to know because I just didn't want to. So I didn't take responsibility. I just thought, well, we'll get married and it'll be fine, and we'll be happy and in love forever. And part of the healing process when you get divorced or you separate and it's painful is you have to take responsibility for your part in that, even if you don't feel you've done anything in inverted commas wrong. You have to be able to say, well, okay, I need to take responsibility for my part and why this didn't work, because that's how you heal and move on.
I
But
think again from personal experience, when I separated from my wife for the last year or so, I'd had a bit of a mental breakdown, and I let's say my behaviour wasn't impeccable. You know what I mean? And let's say for a second I behaved in a way that wasn't impeccable and wasn't the way someone should have behaved. But in order to move forward, I had to accept my capacity for that. So I
yeah,
had to accept my capacity that, hey, look, actually, Colin, you can be a bit of a knobhead if you want to be. And actually, you've got to accept that that's just another aspect of your character, in the same way as you're a dad, you're a son, you're also potentially a bit of an ass. You know what I mean? So I think I can kind of draw. I can see what you're saying there, because to enter into another relationship after I'd been a bit of an arse was a bit more difficult, because I had to consider that.
yes,
I
and
think
then you can make an amends, which is I'm going to promise my partner that I'm not going to do. I'm going to try my very best
yeah,
not to do that. I might not succeed, but I'm going to make an effort.
yeah,
I might not succeed in not being an arse at times, but I'm aware of the fact I can be a bit of a knob, and I'm going to try not to do that. I may not
yeah,
succeed, but I'm trying. I think
yeah,
that's the best we can do.
Yeah, I mean, the other alternative is that you go down a dark path with guilt and you feel bad, and then you're in a horrible guilt trap. And
Yeah,
so,
guilt's no one's friend. Guilt,
guilt's no one's friend. No.
guilt is no one's friend. So, guilt is a difficult one because, of course, we all feel guilty about all sorts of things. And it has its place, as all emotions on my color wheel of emotions have their
Yeah.
place. You don't want to get stuck in guilt because there isn't, again, there's no change there.
Yeah.
So the way to get out of kind of guilt is to accept what I did, why I did it, and how do I not do that again.
Yeah. To learn from it.
If you're a serial philanderer, and some
Yeah.
people are serial affair people. Well, so one thing is let's say you were someone that was prone to having affairs.
Okay.
Okay. So one thing is just be really open about it. Is you say to your partner in waiting, listen, the truth about me is I'm someone that kind of has affairs. And then they can have a choice. They can either go, okay, well, I'm good to go with that, or they go, well, actually, that's not okay with me. Or you say, I'm someone that has affairs, but I'm trying my hardest not to. The thing is about communication and being open. We never know what people are going to say
Yeah.
or not. We really don't. I mean, we kind of
Yeah.
think we've all got to have these very straight
Well,
line relationships. Well, sometimes people have all sorts of relationships, and there's nothing wrong with that. People are polyamorous.
yeah. Well,
People have ethical non-monogamy. People have lovers of both sexes or whatever. Actually, there's more than two sexes now. But
but
across,
yeah. I mean, that makes your job more interesting, I suppose. More variants, more people to work with. That's the way you'd view that, isn't it? There's no kind of, because things have changed, haven't they? You're not just dealing with, 30 years ago you'd be dealing with man-woman relationships, man-man and women relationships would still be under the table, but we're in a very different space now in terms of dating, aren't we?
we are, and what's quite so I'm 58, so I'm in my late 50s. So it's still pretty traditional, right? Most relationships are a man and woman, but not all of them. I mean, of the people I see,
Yeah.
not obviously. But quite often people of my age come in and say, and it's interesting, and I really find this so fascinating. They come in and say, we really love each other. We're economically stable together. We've built a beautiful home. We've got great children, but we don't want a physical relationship with each other anymore. And so we've got to divorce. And I will suggest to them over a period of time that maybe, the oak tree is good. The tree is good. Your tree is good. Why divorce and separate and economically suffer and have to tell your children who you love? Is it possible you would consider having an ethically non-monogamous marriage where you get to go and have sex somewhere else or I mean, it's in the past that would have been unthinkable. People would
I
have
mean, you'd have been struck off, wouldn't you, for saying that?
but yeah, now people are much more open to the idea that there are other ways of doing relationships, whereby
Yeah.
you don't have to hack down that very solid, very good tree with all its rings in it. It's been there for a long time. But you can go and, do other stuff, other places. It's not easy and it takes a
No.
lot of education, but it's definitely changing the way we do relationships.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's well, it's what is do you think, do you some, I guess sometimes you get people come to you and you're just like, really, you needed a therapist for this,
No,
like,
never do
no,
that.
never,
No, never,
never,
never, because it's always about something else.
really. Okay.
No, everybody, if people want therapy,
Yeah.
therapy should be available for anybody who wants it. But again, I have all sorts of thinking around this. So, I mean, just for this podcast, I'm going to make it very small and containable. I think there's a tremendous amount of bad therapy out there.
Okay, I'd
Right.
agree. Yeah.
A lot of people can spend a lot of money and not really get anywhere. And people come into therapy because they want help. And that means they want a trajectory. They don't, they come and they're in pain or whatever, or grief or hurt or confusion, or they're bored or whatever. And actually it needs to get somewhere. It can't just stay here. Often therapy starts here, at point A, and it doesn't really get beyond point A. And people can spend a lot of money and do many years, and they never actually get, which I think is the action part, where you have the toolkit to actually change some stuff and live a happier, better life. I think that's really important. So therapy is amazing and brilliant, and it's really helped me. But there's a point at which you need, which is why I trained as a coach as well. There's a point where I think you need some action. So it can be like, great, well, now I know that my parents, blah, 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 or my siblings, etc., or my school life, or my boarding school, blah, blah, has messed me up and made me feel sad and makes me needy, or whatever the emotions are. But then you need to know, well, now what do I do with that? What do I do with that? Because if we don't do something with that and have a sense of where we're moving to, we just keep playing out the same relationships, hoping the other person is going to fix us.
Yeah.
I'm the ex and she's going to help me, and then I'll feel happy because she will make me happy. Because there's been no movement or action in the original person. And it's interesting. I mean, we're fortunate. So people often say to me, I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm just angry. And I say, you don't think you can help that? No, it's just the way I am. I'm like, right, so you think you were born angry. You came out of the womb. You are an angry baby. You've always been angry since you were born. The minute you were born, you became angry. That's what you do. It's challenging people.
Yeah.
And they say, well, I just can't do anything about it. And I'm like, we've put men on the moon. We have AI. We can create ChatGPT. If we can do that, if human beings have the capacity to do things like that, incredible, amazing things, they have the capacity to change how they function.
Yeah. So let's follow your thought process through on the importance of therapy, right?
Yeah.
If we gave everybody a therapist weekly, right, or monthly, or whatever. Not. Let's not put a time limit on it. If everybody got a counsellor from school age, what do you think the impacts on mental health would be? Do you think we'd be looking at a world where 1 in 4 people weren't suffering from some kind of mental health condition, or would you go that far to advocate the process?
I wouldn't, because I think the term mental health condition is complicated and nuanced. So you've told me that...
Well, in a preventative sense, is my thoughts. Is there some merit to therapy as a preventative measure to just keep people better mentally?
No, the thing that would keep people better mentally is if everyone microdosed psilocybin or something.
You see, that sounds like quite a fun world.
Yeah, a whole fun while everyone's slightly dripping.
I wasn't going to talk about this, but you brought it up. I'm definitely an advocate of a change in drug law. I think the drug laws that we have are archaic, right? But what I have noticed is that psilocybin's being used to microdose. They're using MDMA in microdose for things like multiple sclerosis. They're experimenting now because people are getting mobility back that have got MS from a little tiny bit of MDMA.
Remarkable.
And so how does that scare you?
No,
the psychedelics in mental health and stuff.
It doesn't scare me at all. I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely groundbreaking. I think if you can help people, I mean, the results of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the results of people with anorexia, which is pernicious.
Really?
One of the most
anorexia, I've not been aware.
More than alcoholism, more than drug addiction, anorexia is so hard to shift in therapy. The results of using small doses of psilocybin or MDMA, or I think,
and we're talking tiny amounts for the listener at home.
Yeah, but we're not tiny amounts.
Yeah,
it's tiny amounts.
We're not talking a heroic Saturday night dose.
We're not talking.
I'm guessing there wouldn't even be a mental change of effect. The doses are that small.
Also, the other thing people need to know, if they're listening, is the research that's being done on this at Imperial College and King's College in London is brilliant. It's ongoing. They are rigorous in their research. Things are going to change, and therapists will be training to be able to use recreational drugs. I don't know what other term to
Are
use.
you recommending them to clients then?
I can't. No, I can't
You're not
recommend.
even allowed to
I'm not.
suggest it.
I'm not trained in
Okay.
it, but I can't recommend that. If people want to have a dialogue with me around it, potentially exploring that, I can let them know places to go to explore. But I'm not trained in it.
Yeah.
It's not legal in this country,
Is it not?
as
So
far as I
if
know.
you did the course, you could probably go to the Netherlands and train. I would have thought.
Yeah, people go and train in other countries.
Yeah, I know the
Uh,
Netherlands
so you go and train there, but they're doing a lot of research here. And again, I mean, now you can be prescribed medical cannabis.
you can,
So
yes,
you can. It's not common, but you can.
you can. I've
Because
got a couple of friends that do. They order it.
so so we're beginning to uh, have a look at that stuff. I think people get themselves in a complete tizzy and go, "Oh no, everyone's going to be off their tits all the time. They're all going to be addicted. Then they're all going to take heroin. They're all going to die." It's like stop. I mean, let's have a
Yeah. Well,
let's
it's
have a
the
talk
same.
about
It,
this.
it's the same panic attack that people had when they legalized CBD. It
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
they
yeah.
and now there's old grannies. You know what I mean? Taking little bits of CBD and young kids that are having
Um,
myoclonic seizures.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's an evolution, isn't it?
yeah. People get into a complete kind of tizzy about stuff. So anyway, that's that. I mean, in terms of therapy, the world of therapy is moving, as it should do, moving in lots of different directions, which is right. There is, should we give everybody therapy? It depends. There are enough, it depends. People do need to find the capacity to be able to like heal themselves, as it were. That if we
Yeah,
if we're constantly giving people a sop, and I'll do this for you, I'll do this for you, no one grows up. We're just all going to stay infantilized on the
yeah,
kind of as as they would say on the tit. You'll just have all these people and a
yeah,
forum to talk about the good breasts and the bad breasts, and you'll never get people. I mean, I'm not talking obviously actually brand, but they'll be constantly attached and not able to self-actualize when people grow
yeah.
up. They'll just be constantly asking for endless sort of sort me
I
out. And
mean, but we're kind of there, aren't we? Because there's a little bit of element, I think, that society treats people a little bit like children. Like we live we live in a society where it still has to say "do not drink" on a bottle of bleach. Do you know what I mean? There's
probably because of legal reasons. Yeah, but
Yeah,
there's
but we if we treat people like idiots, ultimately they'll behave like what idiots?
well, I don't know, but you've got to think about action and reaction. You've got if you I think if you look back through the entire history of time, you will have
Wow,
society.
that's big.
Yeah, but I mean, society's changed to the society before, and so our parents I mean, my mother would never occur to have sat down and played with us, not because she was a posho, but just because you didn't do that. Also, she was a war baby. You were busy trying to bloody live. You
Yeah,
know, you're just trying to live. I mean, you have
yeah. Mine
parents.
the same. My dad
Yeah,
was
and the
born
last
in.
thing you're thinking about is, I wonder how my children feel. I mean, they didn't
Yeah,
have the
my dad was born.
luxury.
My dad was born in '45. They were so when. Yeah, by the time we didn't get played with, no, not in the same way as they do now.
Society was different then. I mean, my mother was born in 36. She's still alive.
Yeah.
Thank you, higher power, for my mother still
Wow.
91. She's doing well.
Wow. What? That's an innings. That is.
No, she was evacuated with her
Yeah.
mother. But she didn't because he was an engineer in the army. She didn't see her father for years. Everyone thought he was dead. I mean, they come from a society that were traumatized
Yeah.
many different ways on the back of World War II.
The real threat of invasion, which let's face it, none of us have ever known, have we?
Not really. We've had a very, we've had a very nice time because of all these peace agreements, everything else. We've had grown up in a very different society, and we've had abundance and food and all that sort of stuff. And I think our reaction has been to be much more hands-on parents.
Yeah.
And I think it's an action, it's a reaction to the fact that our parents were probably very hands-off.
Well,
But
there
for
was
reasons.
Did you see any of the? Because I imagine you're quite online. I imagine you're quite au fait with online. There was lots of Generation X, Gen Z stuff a while back on the internet, and we're sort of in that Gen X category, right? Where our parent, we were latchkey kids. We went home to empty houses.
Yeah.
We were told stop crying or we'll give you something to cry for. We were told things like these kids starving in Africa, get your dinner at. We were,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and whereas I was so the opposite with mine that we've almost, I feel a bit like we've created a generation of softies because I think there needed to be a middle ground between how hard our parents were and how soft we were. So
Oh, I'm a total softie, and I
I
think
think any issue we've got with youngsters though is our fault.
no, I mean, I obviously I think people are so down on youngsters, and I don't know. I'm just like, what's the problem? Honestly, you lot. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, just I mean, I hear this all the time from parents.
I,
Oh, their children are there so wet, they've all got to go do national service. I'm like, oh, for goodness sakes, be quiet.
they're not wet. They're not wet. I'm not. You see, I'm not. I mean, I'm a comedian, so I'm very aware of the wokeism debate and all that kind of stuff. But I think, like, the accusation that I get from my kids is that I'm not out fighting for the causes to make life better for them. But the truth is, I was progressive 30 years ago. Like, I'm tired. It's their world to fight for now, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, fair well to fight for.
Yeah, it's completely. And have you got children, Lucy?
Yeah, yeah, I've got lots of children.
Lots.
Yeah, I've got four, and then for other reasons, I've got other children that I.
Oh wow! So you like the kids?
I love them.
Yeah,
I love them. I'd much rather spend time with my kids and their friends. I love them. They're great.
yeah.
I love the fact they cross dress. I love the fact they're theirs and Z. I love it all. I think it's great.
So were you the?
Energizing. It's funny.
Yeah,
Introduces me to a whole set of stuff I wouldn't know about otherwise. I love it. The music, everything is great.
yeah,
Makes me full of beans.
yeah. But you see, I enjoyed being a parent. I'm glad I'm done. I'm glad that the
I
problems
love
now when they come and see me, it's because something massive's happened. You know what I mean? They don't you don't hear from them from one week to the next. But if they have a crisis, then they ring dad, don't they?
I don't know. I mean, I'm in touch with my kids every day, all day. I mean, we were very bonded. They were like literally my favorite people on the planet.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
really funny.
Really?
Great. I think
Yeah,
they.
but they're your own, aren't they? I mean, I
I
love my
know,
own.
right? I
I
know,
love my
right?
own.
I
I
love.
don't.
Honestly, I really love Kit. I think people are just rude about the generation. I think they're rude. I think it's awful if you're a teenager and everyone's moaning on at you and telling you that you're a blah blah. I mean, stop it. We're growing the next. We've got to grow the next generation. That's our job. And people keep banging on about my children. But I'm like, don't do that. You're growing.
Yeah,
You've got to grow the next generation. That's your
we should
job.
have. We should have talked about parenting. We should have. You see, I love parenting, Lucy. It was the only thing I was ever any good at. But as I said, I'm glad I've done. And I was never particularly fond of other people's kids.
Yeah, well, lots of men don't like other people's.
Like
I
I
think
was
that
never.
goes back to being the lion that goes and kills all the cubs of
Oh,
other
that
people.
no, I'd never do that.
No, I don't mean that literal. So you go and kill other people's children, but most men are only really into their own children. Very few men go, "I love all children." I mean, it's just a genetic bloody thing, isn't it?
Is that really it?
Oh, could be, could be.
So if we come back on track, we were talking about relationships. Have you got
Yeah.
some top tips coming into Valentine's Day? Have you got a Lucy's top tips for maintaining a good relationship?
I do. Top tip number one is give each other appreciations every day. That's what Auntie Lucy says. And by that, I mean tell someone something. And it can be, thank you so much for making me a cup of tea, to something like, I love the fact you're on the planet because you make me laugh so much. I mean, every day, we don't do it at all.
Simple
We
things.
do it to everybody, bloody do it to everybody. Go to the
Yeah,
checkout. I go to the checkout and I always think of something really nice to say to the cashier. Oh, I like your hair today,
yeah,
or aren't your earrings beautiful? And people light up because it's like being fed. It's like a plant being fed baby bio. It's like being
yeah,
given nourishment. And if you nourish people in whatever way you want to nourish them, are happy. And a happy wife is a happy life. We all know this. A happy husband's a happy life. So do that. Do it to everybody. That's number one. Number two, get over yourself. I mean, stop going into being defensive. There's nothing helpful. So when someone says to someone, I need to talk to you, the other person goes, oh, and has got defensive already. Oh my God, I've done something wrong. Oh my God, she or he's going to complain at me. I've already got defensive, and no one's even actually said anything yet. So
I'm a little bit like that. I'm quite defensive. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But how does that work for you? It doesn't work because there's nothing.
Not at all. No, not at all.
So you've got to kind of do active listening. That's in my book. I'm not plugging my book. You can look up active.
No, plug your book by all means. What we'll do in the bio at the end, when it goes up, we'll put all the contact details.
On active listening, but you can also find loads of stuff on the internet. Active listening is a game changer. It's how to get out of being defensive and into connection. Number 3 is change your narrative. Change your narrative about yourself. Whatever story you're telling yourself about yourself, tell yourself a different story, because the story you're telling yourself, if your relationship isn't going well, it's not a good story. You've got to tell yourself a different narrative. So we all tend to come from some kind of there's a wounded part in all of us. None of us get out of childhood without being wounded. Even if our parents, it's not like parents go around deliberately doing it. It's just how it is. But we've got to get out of that. We've got to grow up. So the next bit is take responsibility for your actions. It's really, really important to take responsibility. The other thing, and everyone keeps forgetting this, but I do this a lot of my couples, is have fun. Have fun. Do fun things.
Yeah.
People come into couples today and go, oh my God, it's going to be so painful, so difficult. Yeah, but also I'm not doing a good job if I'm keeping my couples in tension and trauma and going, I get them to go and do at least one fun thing a week.
Yeah.
And here's the blindingly obvious thing that I tell everybody. It's so obvious, but people act like it isn't, but it is. Do much more of the stuff you like to do and much less of the stuff that you don't like to do.
Bang on. I like that.
Very simple.
That sounds like good advice for life, not just for relationships.
It is. So write down, what's the things I like to do? Write them all down. What are the things I don't like to do? And then the list of things you don't like to do, either look at them and think, what can I get rid of? Get rid of them. What can I delegate? Delegate. What can I automate? Automate. Does that make sense? So people say things like, I've got to do X. I'm like, but do you have to do X? Or could you just get rid of it altogether?
Yeah.
And then you're going to start shifting your life energetically into a place where you're doing more of what you like and less of what you don't like. This is simple, but people have a problem with being selfish.
Yeah.
So people often say, women maybe more than men. So, well, I don't think I said, what do you like to do? I like to go to yoga. How often do you go to yoga? Oh, I don't really go. Well, go every day. How can I do that? We'll get up an hour earlier. I don't know. Find out yourself how you can do that. And then they'll say, but that feels selfish. And I say,
put yourself first sometimes.
Put yourself first sometimes. Saying that, I'm not saying going around killing babies makes me feel good. So go around and kill babies. Stuff that's good for you. Putting yourself at the center of your life so that you are living a happier, better, more energetic life is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then you spread that out to the other people around you. This is
final thing that we ask all our guests, Lucy, before we let them go, is my favourite food is sandwiches, right? I love sandwiches. I love sandwiches, right? I do. So I'm giving you 2 bits of bread, and what would Lucy Cavendish put in that sandwich?
Well, you know what it's going to be.
Go on.
It's going to be cheddar cheese.
Wow. Yeah, that's fine.
I love cheese.
What, bit of veg, bit of salad, or?
Oh yeah, am I allowed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if I'm going to have cheddar cheese, then I'm going to have some crunchy salad, definitely cucumber, not tomatoes.
Okay.
No tomatoes in a sandwich, ever.
No tomato.
Because it makes the sandwich soggy.
Okay.
Never put tomatoes in a sandwich.
Bit of mayo or sauce of any kind?
I'll have some mayo.
Oh, nice.
Some salt and some pepper.
Cheese salad sandwich, no tomato.
No tomatoes, cheese, and none of that frisee, none of that annoying lettuce that's horrible. Just a bit of cos. or a bit of romaine. None of those silly pretend. And no bitter radicchio. None of that. None of those silly leaves.
All
Some
right.
nice crunchy lettuce, some nice cucumber, bit of mayo, salt, pepper, proper mature cheddar. With the tang, that proper, you
Yeah.
know, with a punch.
Yeah.
Happy. Oh, and
Nice.
oh, no, hang on, not mayonnaise, pickle. Francis pickle.
Pickle.
Sorry,
Nice.
Francis pickle.
Lucy Cavendish, you've been amazing. Thank you very much. And we'll speak to you again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for choosing my podcast from the plethora of podcasts available. Oh, yeah, if you want to find out more or hire me or, just say hello, you can find me on all social medias at Comic Colin78. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the others. Comic Colin78. That's Comic Colin78.
The Colin in Conversation podcast was presented by Colin Etches and edited and produced by Neil Long at neillong.com.